France 1, Austria 0. Another really entertaining game at Euro 2024. Now, this match may not have had the goals of some of the other matches, but tactically I thought it was a really good battle. So we are, of course, going to get straight into things, look at how both teams look to approach this game. And we will start off with France. And the first thing you will notice here is when we're looking at France in possession, on the ball, we have this Austria team pretty high up the pitch because that was really the theme of this game. France trying to play out from the back, and Austria really looking to put them under pressure, as you would expect from a Ralf Rangnick side. It is what they always do. So how did this actually play out? What did both teams look to do? Well, initially, France are of course going to split their two centre-backs either side of the goalkeeper to create the angle to play from the back. From here, Austria are going to shift, rather than this 4-2-3-1 shape. It's more of a 4-2-2-2. They are going to move to a front two formation. And the idea here is essentially to use a piston press between Kante and the centre-backs. So should Saliba have the ball, we'll see Baumgartner go towards Saliba, and then the striker will drop onto Kante. Then if the ball goes across, we will see it the other way round like so. The aim here essentially for Austria though, was to try and force France to play one way. Because Austria knew that if France had the ball in the middle of the pitch, it was going to be quite difficult to press. Whereas when they used this structure and forced France to play over to one side, the touchline could now be used as an extra defender for the Austrians. You see, if Koundé's got the ball in this position, he already has 180 degrees passing angles taken out of the game by the sideline. That is why this is such an effective pressing technique. And of course, Koundé receiving the ball was the trigger to then go man-to-man. So Sabitzer would now come over, closing the angle as Koundé received the ball. Theo Hernandez, to be fair, on the other side tended to be higher, but the whole Austrian team would now come over to this side of the pitch to apply pressure. So normally what we would see now is the front two would be on the two centre-backs. We're going to see the two midfielders pairing up in here, and then the far side winger, Konrad Laimer, is actually going to come inside almost as an extra midfielder, marking Rabiot. So as we can see, if we kind of mark this area here, it's 4 versus 4. Austria have almost changed this into a small-sided game and challenged the French to see whether or not they can play out from the back. And this was really effective. Austria are intense in the way that they press, they are aggressive in the tackle, and it allowed them to win the ball back in some really good areas, move the ball forward, get into the final third, and create decent chances. They probably just lacked that little bit in the final third. However, just because Austria were pressing well, it doesn't mean that France couldn't ever get out from the back. Because of course, the French have some very talented individuals. Koundé, Griezmann, Dembele, Saliba, Rabiot, Mbappe, Theo Hernandez, Kante is underrated on the ball. These are all brilliant footballers, and it did allow France at times to move from the back. The question is, how did they do it? Well, what they tended to do was draw Austria over to this side of the pitch, and then at times show pure individual quality, particularly, with the centre-backs carrying the ball out from the back. Because of course, when it's man-to-man, if you beat your man, that guy's out of the game now. And what this allowed France to do was quickly move the ball towards Theo Hernandez. Now, normally, from an Austrian point of view, this wouldn't be a massive issue, the left-back receiving this ball in a bit of space. Because normally what we would see here is quite a slow approach from the player on the ball. But that didn't happen. Theo Hernandez was very, very aggressive with the way that he played. Every time he got the ball, his first touch was forward, out of his feet, and he was looking to play. Either sliding passes down the line, in behind the opposition defence, or actually carrying the ball forward himself. Now, of course, the reason he had this space was because Laimer had tucked in a little bit more central. However, due to the work rate of this Austrian side, he was still able to get over there and apply pressure. But unfortunately for him, even when Austria got themselves back man-to-man now on this side of the pitch, it was still almost just too difficult. Theo Hernandez is too good at football. And in particular, what we saw was a little pass and move combination. And once Theo Hernandez had released the ball, he would then make the run forward. And Laimer struggled to deal with his athleticism, really, more than anything. When Theo would pass the ball and then move, it was difficult for Laimer to keep up with him. And should the ball then go to someone like Mbappe, Theo Hernandez can make the underlapping run, and France quickly turn a situation where they look like they're under pressure over here, and then suddenly they're advanced in the final third on this side of the pitch. It was really quick, aggressive attacking play, and it was really good down this left-hand side. Theo Hernandez and Mbappe, this duo, are phenomenal. Should Mbappe kind of recover from the broken nose situation, this two will be incredibly dangerous. They are so good. Their understanding between the two of them, the ability for both of them to invert and underlap, the ability for both of them to drive forward, out wide and create chances, the ability for both of them to be a creator but also a carrier is lethal. It is so difficult to deal with. And in terms of turning into these quick transitioning situations, the French have also got the carrying power and the running power of Thuram, who was swapping with Mbappe frequently. He got Ousmane Dembele on the right-hand side as well, who's a brilliant 1-versus-1 dribbler. It made them incredibly dangerous. So Austria actually tactically done a really good job, and Rangnick's tactics closed the gap between these two sides. But actually the quality of the individuals from France still shone through, in my opinion. They were able to move the ball forward still. When they'd done this, when they were a bit more settled in their shape, it was more of a back three, with Koundé holding a slightly deeper position. If we move some of these players forward, Kante would be in here. Rabiot was kind of given this job where he can drop in or he can push forward. Griezmann was a little bit higher in the right half space. And in these situations, the French just had a bit too much quality. It looked like every time they came forward, they could create and they could score goals. But that's nothing against Austria. Tactically, they were very good. France are just exceptional on the ball. But Austria, to be fair, also had some success on the ball as well.
So before we continue into the video, a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, jerseyfifa.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that be the new latest releases or the old classic ones like this, Jersey FIFA has something for everyone, and now you can check it out yourself using the link in the description down below. And also make sure to use code JerseyFIFA for 10% off when you order.
So when Austria were in possession of the football, we saw a completely different game to what we saw up the other end of the pitch. Whereas France were faced with this aggressive press from Austria, the Austrians actually had a lot of time on the ball. France were incredibly passive out with possession, quickly dropping off into a sort of 4-1-4-1 shape, very similar to what we saw from England the other night, if you remember that game. We saw the English looking to get lots of players behind the ball in a 4-1-4-1 shape, being nice and passive. France done something very similar. And of course, as we said in that game, when you are passive, when you sit off, you're going to give away possession and you're going to relinquish control on the football match. And as a result, Austria actually had a very, very decent amount of the ball in this game because they were given time. They were given time to play. The question is, how did they actually look to approach this? How did they move the ball forward? In typical Ralf Rangnick fashion, in a shape which is going to be focused on having plenty of players central with the width being provided by the fullback. So Sabitzer on the left, Lima on the right, were both looking to come inside into these areas. And what we would see is the fullbacks allowed to push forward. So at times it would look almost like a 2-4-3-1 shape, like this. But there were times also where it looked more like a 2-2-5-1 or even a 2-2-6. Super aggressive. Lots of players moving forward into the final third. Now, of course, this could also rotate. One of the midfielders could drop alongside the centre-backs to create a back three. And a solo pivot could become available. And Austria in general were brave in the way that they played. They took risks in these areas, trusting that Mbappe was never really going to put them under a lot of pressure, so they could move the ball into these positions. And then they're really overloading the centre of the pitch. We can see here 4 players up against 3 French midfielders. It allowed Austria to move the ball into dangerous areas. The problem for them was that as they got towards the final third, they just lacked that bit of quality. They just lacked that ability to find a final pass or take a man on the dribble and beat someone. They had a couple of nice passing moves, and Sabitzer in particular was brilliant, but they just lacked that little bit of something that I felt that they needed as they moved the ball forward. And this created a problem for them. Because they were pushing a lot of players forward, they were committing men forward to the attack, but not necessarily always showing the quality that they needed. It meant that when they lost the ball, they could potentially be in trouble. Now, Ralf Rangnick's sides are always set up to lose the ball. Don't get me wrong here, they are very good in the counter press. We can see again, with all these players central, when Austria did lose the ball, they could quickly get players around the ball and stop the opposition getting out. So that's a good thing. Austria done this well, and at times were able to suffocate France and stop them playing out from the back. However, again, we are once again talking about a France side which are very good on the ball. Technically, strong. Really comfortable playing in tight spaces. Again, the likes of Griezmann in particular are very good in these areas. And it meant that, yes, Austria could counter-press in the middle and win the ball back high and look dangerous. But should France break the press, there was a lot of room out wide, outside of this Austrian shape. If France could play through the first phase of pressure and get the ball wide to Ousmane Dembele, to Thuram, also to Mbappe at times, Griezmann at times on the right as well, this is when it looked like there could be some problems. And Austria did face some problems here. The pace of Mbappe was frightening. To be fair, Danzo at the back actually done a really good job of dealing with it for most of the game. But that threat was always there. And that was the difference for me between the two sides. I feel that both sides were set up reasonably well. Austria pressed with a great intensity. It was super aggressive. France were a bit more passive, a bit more basic, if you like, tactically. They were kind of given a very basic balance and given the license to go perform from there, which is quite typical of Didier Deschamps. The big difference for me was France looked like they were going to score every time they went forward. Austria didn't have that. no offence to Austria, they didn't have an Mbappe, they didn't have an Ousmane Dembele, a Griezmann. The quality, and the threat and the fear that France attack strikes into defences is terrifying. That's what it is. It is so dangerous when they move forward at speed. It looks like they could score at any moment, and ultimately they got that bit of quality from Mbappe. They then got a little bit of luck with a pretty horrendous own goal, but France probably just about edged it because the individual quality. The players in the attack were just a little bit too good for Austria, and Austria didn't have that same quality going forward up the other end of the pitch. So I think France just about deserved to win it purely on individual quality, but tactically I actually think Austria got the upper hand, which is why it made for such an interesting game, in my opinion. Let me know your opinion in the comments though. What did you make of the game? Who was man of the match? Did France deserve to win? Let me know what you think, but apart from that, we are finished for today. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.